And with that, we bring on a member of the Cuse basketball family. Please be joined now by Ryan Blackwell. Ryan, I know it's been a tough day and tough 24 hours or so for you and the Cuse basketball family. Thanks for giving us a few minutes. How did you? I guess we'll start with how did you find out about Lawrence and what were your initial thoughts?
Well, yeah, I was driving, and Alan Griffin called me. And he's like, "Where are you right now?" I said, "I'm driving." I was actually on my way to Syracuse, and he said, Lawrence Moten died. I just said, "What?" Like everyone else, thinking Lawrence, great shape, thinking about that energy. He's always, around, friendly guy, very down to earth, humble. Obviously one of the greatest players in Syracuse history and Big East history. And, you never know because he on the outside, from the exterior, he looked like he was in phenomenal shape. And just, had a lot of life left to live. And that's just very unfortunate, I feel, for his kids. He's somebody's brother, somebody's son, and that's just very unfortunate. Obviously, death is a unfortunate part of life, but when it happens to someone like that, where it's really totally unexpected out of the blue, it's that's tough to handle.
Yeah, well said. We've been hearing reaction from several members of the Cuse basketball family. We talked with Mike Hopkins last night. Our Mario Sacco interviewed him last night, and he was recounting stories. And the first time he guarded Lawrence Moten in practice in a pickup game, and recounted some of his great performances. When did you first meet Lawrence? I know your paths didn't cross as a player. He was a few years older than you, but you came to Syracuse a couple years after he had left. When did you first meet him? Did he come back at all when you were a player?
I met him in high school when I used to go on unofficial visits when I was, in high school in Rochester. So, we take the trip. My parents would bring me over for games or to go watch practice or something like that. And, he was always very friendly then. And like you said, just a great scorer, had a knack for scoring, but away from basketball, he's just a down-to-earth, friendly person. He was someone you enjoyed being around, having conversation with. Always had a story. He was always cracking jokes, and was just friendly to everyone he came across.
Paulie was recounting the story a little bit earlier that he was showing one of our younger colleagues here who's in his 20s a highlight tape of Lawrence Moten because he never got to see him play, obviously. And he said that the highlight tape wasn't all that impressive, right? It's just he's just making baskets, right? He's not dunking on you. He's not jumping through the roof. It was just making baskets. How would you describe Lawrence Moten's game to somebody who never saw him play?
Yeah, like you said, he's not overly athletic. He wasn't big and physical, but he was wiry. He knew how to use his body. He had a unique way of finding angles, but he was fundamentally sound. Like Coach Bam said yesterday, he said it best. He said it made it look so easy and and effortless because he just had that skill. He had a knack for scoring, and he wasn't a prolific three-point shooter, but he could knock down shots. He could get to his spots. He had great footwork. And he was never in a rush. He played at his own pace, and that's the sign of a great scorer, not letting any type of defense rush you or get you off your stance or your shot. So he found a shot whenever he wanted to, and he made it look flawless and effortless. And that was kind of his personality. That's how he kind of lived his life. He was just very easygoing, and just an easygoing guy.
We knew him at first because of basketball, obviously, and he scored a lot of points, and he scored more points than anybody in the history of the Big East Conference until 2020. Mm-hmm. But, what Lawrence Moten, I think, meant to this community was so much more than that, and he got heavily involved in the community, even recently. For the last 30 years, he's been doing different things with kids and whatnot in this community. I guess, can you speak to that part of it, that aside from basketball, that, Lawrence, really, he meant a lot to this place and the people of this place?
Yeah, he's done so many things. He worked in, with at-risk youth around the community for, since I've been back and even before that in the area, which a lot of people don't know. And that's why people loved him, because he's always willing to help out. He used to come to my games at Liverpool, and he was so supportive. And, he just would always lend a helping hand whenever he could. It didn't matter who it was. or where you came from or what you looked like. He loved life. He loved being around people. He loved to impart wisdom on anyone he could. And that wasn't overbearing, but he just loved, like, he had a great spirit. He was a great person, a great human being, obviously a great basketball player, but he was a better person, a better human being. And we lost a great one.
You know, when you talk about him in the community, but what about with the Syracuse players? It's funny to me is no matter what year the player played, I was looking on Instagram yesterday, they all had a picture with Lawrence Moten and a smile and an arm around him. You know, was he like that for you guys also? Like just as like almost a teammate, even though he wasn't playing anymore?
Always. I can remember back the days when I was playing and, you know, maybe I had a couple bad games or went through a slump or something. He would always come up to me and give me positive, reinforcing, you know, encouraging words. And he was like that with everyone. Everyone has a story of Lawrence Moten being positive or encouraging to them at one point or another. And that's who he was. And I think that was what kind of made what was special about Lawrence. He didn't care. A guy that was a leading scorer in Syracuse history was humble enough to try to give back and help others. And that's just, you know, that was a unique thing about him.
When you think back on his time as a player at Syracuse, or maybe even after his time as a player, is there something that comes to mind for you, Ryan? Is there a certain moment or memory or game or interaction, or like, how will you remember him?
Yeah, I mean, you know, aside from the basketball, you know, Lawrence was, you know, one of those guys when we play pickup, you know, he would talk trash, but if I could say he did it eloquently, he was fun about it. It wasn't like he wasn't trying to demean you, or it wasn't malicious or over aggressive, but it was fun. It was like, okay, Lawrence Moten just scored on me, and he was talking trash, but he did it in a different way. You're like, I'll accept that. You know, Lawrence Moten is a great scorer, but he just had a way about him that made you feel good. He's a very welcoming. You know, I think even when he coached Boeheim's Army and he played a little bit, you know, at the age of 52, the guy was in the gym. He looked phenomenal. He could still dunk with ease. I feel like he could go out today and still score 20. I mean, that's just the kind of guy he was and the kind of shape that he was in. And I think that's why it's so hard to wrap our heads around because, you know, obviously on the exterior, he looks great. Who knows what was going on with him internally, you know, inside his body or whatever. You know, they're doing an autopsy and find out. But definitely, like I said, man, we lost a great person, a great human being, great athlete, great player, and we're going to miss him.
Ryan, thank you for the time. I know it's been a tough 24, 36 hours. Thanks for coming on with us, and best of luck as you get another season started here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Ryan Blackwell joining us here